Hi, welcome to Virtual CB1A. This is Miss Rena. And for today's lesson, we're going to continue our discussion on parent functions. And today, we're going to discuss the parent function of logarithmic functions. Okay, so the parent function of a logarithmic function is given by this equation. Logarithm of x with base a. And of course, if we have base that is equal to 10, the parent function will simply be the logarithm of x. We don't have to write the base a if our base is 10. So this is referred to as the common logarithm. While for the natural logarithm, it is represented by ln x. So these are the three parent functions that we are going to consider. Logarithm of x with a is equal to 10, and of course, ln x with the base, which is equal to e. Now, let's go to the graph of this function. So just this one, the main parent function. Again, I have prepared here the Desmos graphing calculator. And we're going to graph the parent function logarithm of x with base a. So let's just type here f of x. F of x. Is equal to the logarithm with base a of x. Ayan, logarithm of x with base a. And again, you will be given the option to add a slider. So for this, if you will take notice, our a is equal to 1 and you will not see any point on the graph or any line on this Cartesian plane. Why is that so? If you still remember our restriction for exponential functions before, we cannot have a value of a that is equal to 1. Since exponential functions and logarithmic functions are inverses, the same restriction will apply. Your a should not be equal to 1. And it should be greater than 1. So let's place here 1.4. So this is a value that is greater than 1. So this is how your graph will look like. So if you will take notice, it doesn't have any value in the negative x-axis. So we have another restriction for the domain. And that is your value of x should not be less than 0. Now, let's complete our table here since we already know the graph of our exponential function. So, for the domain, as I've said earlier, you will not get any value or you cannot place or substitute any value of the negative x-axis for x. So, it'll be from 0 to the positive infinity. Why open on 0? Let's take a closer look on our graph. Let's pan in and then scroll down. So you can see that it looks like it will approach 0, but actually it is asymptotic at x is equal to 0. It will never touch the y-axis. Okay? Now, let's discuss the range. I will just write 0 in a better form. So the domain is from 0 to the positive infinity, while for the range, since you can get values both on the positive y-axis and negative y-axis, then your range will be from the negative infinity up to the positive infinity. Okay? Now, let's talk about the inverses. We already discussed this when we talked about exponential functions. We know that the inverse of the exponential function of the form a raised to x is logarithm of x with base a. So that is the same for the inverse of the logarithmic function. So the inverse of logarithm of x with base a is a raised to x. Now let's try to look at their graph. How can we see if they are really inverses? So they should be symmetric. Let's type in its inverse. We have f of x is equal to a raised to x. We have the same value, which is 2.3. And if we move the slider, the functions will always reflect one another. They will always be symmetric. So to look at it better, let's pan out. This is how your graph will look like. They are always symmetric to one another. Okay? Alright. And of course, during our discussion on exponential functions, we also discussed about the inverses of this too. We have f prime of x is equal to 10 raised to x, and this one is I used prime. It should be negative 1. So the inverse of f of x should be equal to e raised to x. Yan ang hirap pagka naghahalo-halo na yung math. Nagde-derivative nga rin pala tayo. So it should be inverse, not prime. So it is f inverse, or the inverse of the function is equal to a raised to x. Okay, so for the restriction, when I was showing you the graph earlier, na-discuss na natin yung restriction, pero isulat pa rin natin siya. Your a, of course, should be greater than 1, and also your x should be greater than 0. So, kita naman siya sa domain. It is from 0 to the positive infinity. Now, is it odd or even? So, looking at the graph, tanggalin muna natin yung isa. So, looking at the graph, is it symmetric about the origin? No. Is it symmetric about the y-axis? Again, no. So, this is neither. It is neither odd nor even. Now, what is the general form of logarithmic functions? We have a logarithm of b times x minus h plus k. Okay? So that will be it for our discussion on logarithmic functions. Please wait for the other videos. I will be uploading them soon. Thank you and have a good day. Bye!